There are some paintings that are famous because they are beautiful. And then there are paintings that become famous because history refuses to leave them alone. The Mona Lisa is both. It is admired for Leonardo da Vinci's genius, for its stillness, for its smile, for the strange sense that the woman in the portrait knows something the rest of us do not. But that is only part of the story, because the Mona Lisa is not just a masterpiece. It is a target. Over time, it stopped being only a painting and became a symbol of genius, of fame, of cultural prestige. It has been stolen, copied, hunted, hidden, mythologized, and turned into something bigger than a work of art. Over time, it stopped being only a painting and became a symbol of genius, of fame, of cultural prestige, and perhaps above all, of possession. And that is what makes one question so fascinating. During the Second World War, when the Nazis looted Europe on an extraordinary scale, did they ever get their hands on the Mona Lisa? At first, that sounds like a simple mystery. Either they did or they did not. But the deeper you go, the stranger the story becomes. Because the real question may not be whether the Nazis found a Mona Lisa. The real question may be whether they found the real one. And if they did not, then this is no longer just a story about wartime theft. It becomes something far more intriguing. A story of deception, a story of misdirection, a clever strategy of the hunters. A story in which one of the most famous paintings in the world may have survived because someone was clever enough to let the thieves chase the wrong prize. To understand why that possibility matters, we have to begin earlier, before the war, before the Nazis, before the mystery of the hidden original. We have to begin with the moment the Mona Lisa stopped being merely admired and became world famous. In 1911, an Italian handyman named Vincenzo Peruggia walked into the Louvre and stole the painting. It was an astonishingly simple theft. He had worked at the museum before, he knew the building, he knew how art was handled. And on a day when the museum was closed, he removed the painting from the wall and escaped with it. For a time, no one seemed to notice. And when the truth finally emerged, it caused an international sensation. Newspapers exploded with the story. Crowds gathered at the Louvre, not to see the Mona Lisa, but to see the empty space where it had once hung. That absence became part of its legend. The missing painting was suddenly more famous than the painting itself had ever been. It is one of the great ironies in art history. The theft did not damage the Mona Lisa's fame, it created it. By the time it was recovered, it was no longer only a Renaissance portrait, it was a celebrity, a global icon. And that changed everything. Because once a painting becomes that famous, it also becomes something else, a trophy. The Nazis were not casual looters, they were systematic, ambitious, obsessive, they took everything. Some works were destined for Hitler's planned museum, others disappeared into storage depots and castles. In such a world, it is hard to imagine that the Mona Lisa would not have been a prime target. The question is, where was it? As war approached, French museum officials began moving major works out of Paris for safety. The Mona Lisa was among them. It was packed, transported, and relocated multiple times as the danger grew. Like other masterpieces, it moved through the French countryside under secrecy and extraordinary care. At first, this seems reassuring. The painting was protected, it was hidden, it survived. But then, the record starts to become less clear. There are strange gaps and contradictions. Some records point one way, some another. Art historian Noah Charney suggests the real mystery is not whether the Nazis found a Mona Lisa, but whether they found the real one. Reports emerged suggesting the Mona Lisa had been recovered from the Altace salt mine, one of the most famous Nazi art repositories. The mine was packed with stolen treasures, a dark underground vault filled with masterpieces from across Europe. So, if the Mona Lisa was there, the conclusion seems obvious. The Nazis got it, case closed, except it was not. What was recovered from Altace may not have been the original. It may have been a very fine copy, a version close enough to be mistaken. Now we are dealing with a possibility that is far more elegant. The French may have protected the real painting by allowing the enemy to pursue a substitute. That somewhere amid the chaos of war, the French may have protected the real Mona Lisa not simply by hiding it, but by allowing the enemy to pursue something else. A substitute, a decoy, a false target. Think about how brilliant that would be. If you know the enemy wants one object above all others, then total disappearance may not be the safest strategy. A missing object invites a relentless search. But a believable substitute, something that can be tracked, seized, cataloged, and triumphantly stored away, might satisfy the hunters while the real prize slips into deeper obscurity. In that sense, the safest place for the original may not have been nowhere. It may have been behind a lie. And that is what gives this story its extraordinary tension. Because the Mona Lisa had, in a strange way, been preparing for such a role for decades. It was already a painting haunted by copies, replicas, imitations, and public obsession. Its image had been reproduced again and again. That makes the wartime mystery almost poetic. A painting made famous by being stolen in 1911 may have been saved in the 1940s by being doubled. First, it became legendary through absence. Then perhaps it survived through substitution. And this is why the story is so much better than a simple art heist tale, because the most obvious version of the story is also the least interesting. The Nazis tried to steal great art. Of course they did. The Mona Lisa was hidden during the war. That too is unsurprising. But this possibility, That the Nazis may have believed they had captured the most famous painting in the world, only to end up with the wrong Mona Lisa, that is something else entirely. That turns the story into a contest of intelligence, not brute force against weakness, but greed against strategy. It suggests that museum officials, curators, and protectors of culture were not merely caretakers, desperately moving fragile objects from one place to another. They may also have been tacticians, people who understood that art in wartime is not only vulnerable, it is hunted. And when something is hunted, survival may depend as much on deception as on secrecy. That possibility also restores a sense of human ingenuity to the story. Masterpieces do not save themselves. Behind every survival story in wartime, there are people making impossible decisions under pressure. What to move, where to hide it, whom to trust, what records to keep, what records not to keep, and whether sometimes the most responsible act is to let the enemy believe they are winning. And perhaps that is why this mystery still feels so alive, because it has never been fully flattened into certainty. There is no perfect ending where every document aligns and every question disappears. Instead, what remains is a gap, and inside that gap, a deeply persuasive idea. That the Mona Lisa survived not only because it was valuable, but because it was famous enough to require a performance. A performance with a box, a label, a route, a copy, and somewhere else out of sight, the real painting. We may never know with complete certainty, but that uncertainty is exactly what gives the story its power. The Mona Lisa thrives on ambiguity. In that reading, the greatest twist is not that the Nazis wanted the Mona Lisa, everyone would have wanted it. The greatest twist is that they may have been handed a version of the story they were meant to believe, a masterpiece for their records, a trophy for their salt mine, a victory that may not have been a victory at all. And that changes the emotional center of the whole tale. The suspense is no longer, was the Mona Lisa stolen? The suspense becomes, who was deceiving whom? Was the painting truly captured? Or did Nazi looters, for all their reach and power, become the victims of one of the most refined acts of wartime misdirection in cultural history? We may never know every detail with complete certainty, but that uncertainty is exactly what gives the story its power. Because the Mona Lisa has always thrived on ambiguity. Her expression is ambiguous, her meaning is ambiguous, even her fame grew through mystery. Sometimes it is to place a lie directly in its path. The mystery is not whether it was stolen, but whether the thieves were the ones who were fooled. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more incredible stories from history.